Welcome back to our Rise and Fall series. So we're going to be talking about the Ouchi clan in this one. There's a handful of clans that I always play in every game. I try to make runs with, usually when they're on their last legs, and this is one of them. So we're going to cover their starting scenario, their best starting scenario, which you can see is 1546, their worst one, which is the very next one, and what they have going for them, right? So before I start, let me just say, if you guys haven't subbed to the channel, make sure you sub. Leave me a comment down below if there's a clan that you want to see covered. And we're also going to be doing live streams at least once every weekend, so stay tuned for that. They're usually going to be on Sunday. So with that said, this clan was historically considered like the Titan of the West during this period. So the fact that this clan fell apart was kind of a shock. And as such, it's pretty strong in the first scenario. Like you can see here that it's recommended 1546, and by 1553 it is up, it is all over for the Ouchi clan. It's really crazy how it turned around. There's a lot of factors, but the main factor is the rebellion of its best retainer and the rise of the Mori clan, of course. There's only 2 scenarios that it's available to play as the Ouchi clan so far. I'm hoping that we get some DLC for pre-1546, because there are some officers who are already deceased in the game by 1546. And the fact that they exist in the game, that kind of leads me to believe that we're going to get something. We're going to get some other scenarios before 1546. So, anyway, so looking at the scenario, like I said, the recommended isn't really correct. Like, yeah, it's their best starting scenario out of the 2 available, but this is not a 1 difficulty clan. The Ouchi clan is a 3-star difficulty clan. Even this start is very, very difficult. So I wouldn't play this clan unless you know the mechanics in and out, and you have your your go-tos for how to conduct war, how to get out of war, all that stuff, right? So starting with their strengths, their biggest strength is, it's kind of funny, but the Ouchi clan's biggest strength is that they're allied to the Mori clan. They're allied to the Mori clan for 3 years. So for 3 years you have access to Motonari's forces. That's honestly their biggest strength that they have going for them. Now outside of that, outside of having the power of the Mori on your side, is the fact that they have 8 castles. Your territory is huge. It's actually, I think they have the most territory. The Imago might be, yeah, they have 7. They're close behind. And the Otomo have 6. So you have the most out of the 3. And these 2 forces are your big contenders here. In terms of expansion, because your territory is so wide, this gives them the strength of being able to invade in any direction. So, you could head down here towards the island. You could start going to war against the Otomo clan. You can have Motonari help you overthrow the Imago. I mean, you have a lot of possibilities, which is a strength, because you're very, very flexible. You're not hemmed in, So those are your 2 big strengths. And that's pretty much it. That's where the strengths end for this clan. You can call on the Mori to help you, which are way better, much better clan. And you have very, very, very high flexibility in how you want to approach the scenario, how do you want to approach your conquering and all that. Now let's look at the officers. I'm going to tell you that the officers are mediocre to begin with. Your best officer, of course, is Takafusa Su. This is the guy who rebels against the Daimyo, leads to the Daimyos. He's the best officer, but the guy is like renowned as like a traitor, because he orchestrates, it says here, his master's suicide by rebelling, and he installs, I believe, his son as like a puppet figure. I think that's a typo there. Haruhide Otomo as head of the clan. He installs the son as a puppet figure for a little while before he gets killed by Motonari. But anyway, looking at Takafusa's stats, and like I said, you only have like 3 good officers. This is the best one easily. This is the, the very focal point of the army. 85 leadership, 85 valor. It's great, especially on this side of the map. It's great. Cheer is great. He has a really nice 1-2 punch between cheer and tactics, because he can double up his attack. Whenever cheer pops off, your attack goes up, and tactics, whenever you catch unit in a pincer, your attack goes up. So you can deal some pretty heavy damage by using him, like maneuvering him in battle, right? The only problem I would say is the fact that cheer needs a little bit to charge up, and since he's your best officer, you can't exactly keep him on the sidelines. You can't keep him away from participating until his tactic is ready to go off. You need him in the beginning. So he needs a lot of troops so that you can get a few triggers of cheer during the fight. Outside of these 2 things, the next best thing about Takafusa is equestrian trait. The Ouchi clan have access to both stables and muskets right from the get-go. So you can develop cavalry if you want, double up on it with this. He's the only one in the force that has it, unfortunately. But still, he can use cavalry relatively well in the force. Also, he's a senior retainer. He's only 1 out of 2. The other officer that we're going to cover, so let's go cover him, is the other senior retainer, Okimori. Now, Okimori is decent for this force. He doesn't stand out except for one thing. And this is only in this scenario, the Ouchi's scenario, that this is, in my opinion, viable. He has strength in numbers. So if you guys haven't used strength in numbers, what it does is it increases literally the max soldier count that you can have across your force. And the drawback is that your unit abilities are decreased. Normally this is a hefty penalty, decreasing unit abilities. But the thing about the Ouchi is that your force is already pretty terrible. In terms of your officers, they're pretty bad. So essentially, because your unit abilities are already going to be pretty low, lowering them a little bit more to get more soldiers is fine. It's perfectly fine. It's not going to be too taxing. Usually having strength in numbers, the problem with using strength in numbers is that, okay, you have more soldiers, but you have to be able to, afford those soldiers. So that means supplies and all that, right? Well, you have 8 castles. You have the most territory of anyone else. So if anyone's going to be able to run the strength in numbers conservator role, it's going to be the Ouchi over here. You're going to have the crops to be able to feed these soldiers, and you also have the most territories, which means the most opportunities to fill in those soldier slots and increase them further. So for this force, in this situation, in their first scenario, strength in numbers is, in my opinion, it's a go-to. It just works because, again, your unit abilities are subpar anyway. Doesn't matter. You may as well have way more troops so you can beat down and wear down your competition around you. Outside of these 2 guys, of Okimori and Takafusa, you have the Daimyo Yoshitaka, who again is not terrible. He's just kind of mediocre. 75 leadership is good because at least you won't. Defense is really important with daimyos, because the higher the defense, the less damage you take, the more personal battles you can fight. I've said this a lot in my military basic videos, but you need your daimyo to have good sustainability so that you can keep fighting multiple battles. And when you do make mistakes in battle, if you have a high leadership, at least you won't get routed immediately. So 75 leadership is actually really good for him. Perturb is not terrible. Enemy unit stamina is decreased. That's decent. The best thing about him is that he has networking. Because one of this clan's weaknesses is that it just doesn't have enough officers. You just have so much, you're having this huge realm is a double-edged sword. Yes, you have flexibility, But the drawback with that is that everything's massively underdeveloped, and you don't have enough officers to defend this huge swath of land that you have. So networking can be crucial. I think the Daimyo has it, and I think the Daimyo's son has networking as well. I think that's the only good thing that his son has. So this is the puppet figure here. Yeah, he also has networking. So you have 2 officers that have networking, so maybe you can acquire officers at a faster rate. So yeah, outside of these 3 guys, I mean, that's it. You know, I'm not saying that these guys are total rubbish, but they're just very, very mediocre after that. The stats completely drop off. Okay, so the officer core, again, for the Ouchi is just, it's not very good. You just have 3 people. You thought the Miyoshi was bad. Now the Miyoshi have 5. Stellar. You could say, let's say stellar. Just for the video, we'll say they're stellar. 5 stellar officers. And over here you have 3 guys who are kind of, one guy's pretty good and the other guys are kind of meh. So that's it. 3 people kind of holding up the whole force. The power of this clan is just that you have the capability of mustering a ton of soldiers and just running over whoever you can. And that's probably the strategy, you know? Choose a target quickly, because we're going to cover the fall in just a second. But choose a target quickly and go. You know, as fast as you can muster, get the troops out there and go take over some territory and get some more officers. And it's going to vary depending on the player. You know, if you want to go for higher risk, you can go for the Imago and really stretch your realm across all this territory. Or you can go into Kyushu here and pick off some of these smaller guys. You know, so it's up to the player. But that's it. Those are the advantages. Now let's talk about their worst scenario and cover the disadvantages. Okay, so just glancing at the map here between the 2, if you look at the Ouchi here, you can tell that there's a huge difference already, right? But let me show you guys just how bad it gets when you click on it. Again, this is usually when I try playing this clan. In past versions, I like trying to make a run with them after the Takafusa's rebellion. So now you're down to 5 castles. You've lost your holding in Kyushu. And that's not even the worst of it. Okay, so you've lost 3 castles. Your officer corps is down by 8. Or no, you're down by 12. Officer corps has been cut in half, from 24 officers to 12 officers. That's still not the worst of it. You know what the worst of the Ouchi clan is here in the end? What really kills this clan is that you are no longer allied with the Mori. That's the worst thing. It's just that your neighbor here, the most powerful force on this side of the map, is no longer your friend, and in fact is an enemy now, because Motonari has a hate relationship with the guy who rebels. So by the starting date here, the rebellion has already occurred. Takafusa's rebellion has occurred, and so your daimyo is dead. The new daimyo is the son, who is just a puppet, and his stats reflect that. So, like I said, your daimyo needs to have something going for them, you know? It's so important to have, like, Hisamasa, in my Azai playthrough, at least he can confuse units. His stats are bad, but at least he can confuse units. This guy has just networking going for him. And that's it. And I gotta tell you guys, it's so difficult. It's backbreaking in Nobunaga's Ambition Awakening, because you want to fight your battles yourself. It's your best chance of winning the whole campaign is to just fight every fight yourself. To take advantage of AI mistakes, AI, loopholes, all that stuff. So when you have a daimyo like this, like Yoshinaga, it's so difficult to make anything happen. I mean, you can bring him along and sit him in the back, but the problem is, whatever troops he brings, a high percentage of the troops in the castle are going to be tied to your daimyo. So if you have 5,000 troops, and you muster from the castle, but 3,000 are tied down to the daimyo, and then you can't use him because terrible, like this guy is, then that's 3,000 troops that are just going to be sitting in the back that you have to use sparingly because you don't want to rout them. You see what I mean? So it's a compounding problem. It's really backbreaking to have a daimyo that's terrible, like this guy is absolutely terrible. Now let's look at the rest of the force. You still have Okimori, but the strength in numbers that I was just talking up a second ago is no longer viable. At this point, because you've lost 3 castles, so you have to consider, and your officer corps has been cut in half, you can no longer develop, you don't have the territories anymore to get that crop surplus, to feed those extra soldiers, you don't have the territory for it, and because you don't have the territory, you also have 3 less castles to take advantage of the increase in soldiers, and now you have half the officers to develop. So disregard strength in numbers if you're planning on trying the Ouchi with 5 castles. You know, I'm not saying that if you make a run somehow, if you somehow make a run, first of all, let me know in the comments, because I'd like to know what the strategy is, okay? I'll take some pointers. But if you make a run with the Ouchi on this start, somehow, you're going to need to regain some castles before it becomes even viable. I mean, I don't think it's worth it. Just forget about it, right? So at this point, Okimori he's like I said, he's still not terrible, but his main contribution is gone. It's wiped. So that's a huge blow. Now Harukata Su, you still have him at least for a little while, but there's an event that's going to go off, and I think it goes off about 2 years into the game. The famous battle against the Mori where he ends up dying, where Harukata dies. So you're only going to have him for about 2 years. Now, yeah, you can disable events and you can play the game without events. You know, a lot of these videos you could just say, just don't play with events. Okay, that's true. You could do that. But the game is not set up. It's so on rails that the programming for playing this game with no events is non-existent. Like, the AI doesn't even consider alliances right now. As of right now. Hopefully Koei patches it. But let's just, you know, long story short, this game is built from the ground up to work with the event system. There's nothing built in the AI to work without the event system right now. So you can turn it off, but for the purpose of my videos, I'm always going to just assume that you're playing with events. So Harukata, you're going to lose him after 2 years. And that, to me, that's like that's the death knell right there. I would probably keep the events on and just avoid triggering it, is what I would do, honestly. But you still have your 2 guys. You're going to lose one of them in 2 years. It's a step down for the daimyo. You only have 12 officers. I can't hit this point hard enough. You only have 12 officers and you have 5 castles. It's insane. You may as well play as the Imago. I mean, you'd have an easier time somehow. Now, there is one thing that the Ouchi forces have going for them here. And if you saw my Imagawa live stream, you kind of already know what that is. And that is that they're allied with somebody who can bail them out. And for them in this scenario, you've lost the Mori, but you've gained the Otomo. So the Otomo clan you're allied with for, let's see, 2 years. Actually, I think you're allied with still the Ki, and you're also allied with this clan here, the Akitsuki. So the main thing is, though, you have an alliance with Soren, and so you might be able to call on him to help you. I don't know. I've personally never survived in past versions long enough to, I mean, even consider calling for help or anything like that. But in this game, it's a lot easier to call for reinforcements. So maybe there's hope for this clan working together with the Otomo. At a glance, I would say, though, that you're on borrowed time, because once the Shimazu start to gain in strength, the Otomo's attention is going to be tied up. So as time goes on, they're not going to be able to help you. That's just my assumption. But maybe there's a way to do a fast kind of blitz on the Mori clan and pushed them back. I don't see it because Motonari is just so stacked. You know, his force is just way too strong. It outclasses you. But yeah, that's it. I mean, once you start the very next scenario, the turning point is the rebellion, Harukata's rebellion, and it does trigger in the first scenario, but you do have about 5 or 6 years before he rebels, and this force gets split in half and falls apart. So in the first, if you played the first scenario of the Ouchi clan, I think you can make some gains. Maybe not overthrow the Morai, but you can certainly improve your force before the rebellion occurs, and your chances of success are much higher. I'm not going to say it's going to be an easy run because it's still difficult. You know, this clan is hemmed in by really, you know, pretty strong neighbors. I know the Otomo's they're not the strongest clan ever, but they can muster a force against you if given enough time, and the Mori is just going to have your full attention. So, and repairing relations with them, I don't know if it's possible because, again, Motonari really hates Harukata. I'm surprised there's not a nemesis system in this game, actually. But yeah, I think that's gonna cover it for the Ouchi. Like I said, their best starting, you know, the first date is their strongest one, and even at their strongest, they still feel very, very weak. I don't recommend this clan unless you know exactly, like I said, you need to be laser focused, or you just need to accept that you're on borrowed time when you play as the Ouchi. And I certainly don't recommend them here right when the clan's about to fall, because Motonari, I mean, you're just a punching bag for Motonari. That's pretty much what they exist for at this point. Maybe with help from the Otomo you can hold out and make something happen. I don't know. I will tell you guys this: I will be trying out this clan at some point. It'll probably be a live stream because I don't expect to last for very long. So yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said earlier, make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Till then.